We're told the average American consumes about 40 gallons of soda pop each year. To the people who make soft drinks, that adds up to more than $35 billion each year. About two-thirds of that industry is controlled by those two juggernauts, Coke and Pepsi, who are supposedly locked in an epic struggle for a bigger share of the market, putting intense pressure on their local bottlers, some company-owned, some independent franchises, to push the product by whatever means necessary. And in some cases, that zeal has resulted in a kind of Cola-Payola. One way Coke and Pepsi make sure most supermarket stores and vending machines are stocked to the gills with their products, raising the question of whether the two giants are really the rivals everyone thinks they are.
Talk about a classic confrontation. Boy,
the two giants spend about $300 million a year on their highly competitive advertising.
Here's the delivery.
But the pitch often goes beyond the simple claim that one brand tastes better than the other.
I like to teach the world to sing.
It's often an appeal to shared values and ideals, the message being there's more than just soda in those bottles. There's the soul of America as well.
It's the real thing.
But here in the trenches, in the supermarket aisles, slick ads and sentiment don't guarantee success. Surveys show that people who buy soft drinks tend to buy whatever brand a store is featuring. If one brand is exclusively featured in a supermarket food day ad, and that brand has a prominent display away from the other sodas, and if that brand has the lowest price, it will outsell the competition by a wide margin. How does that brand get all that special treatment? In many parts of the country, it pays the store owner to get it. Some people call those payments promotional incentives. Other people call them payola. Economist David McFarland has studied how Coke and Pepsi operate.
They offered the supermarkets money, big amounts of money, up front. And what the supermarkets had to do to comply with the arrangement they had was to exclusively promote Coke on the Coke agreement and Pepsi on the Pepsi agreement, to give whichever one was on special, the lowest price in the store, give them a special display when people come into the store, and to advertise exclusively that brand of that size bottle in the newspaper. Coke would get 26 weeks in the supermarket and Pepsi the other 26. That excludes everybody else.
Here's a copy of one such deal. It's most often called a calendar marketing agreement, or CMA. In this one, a Coca-Cola bottler promises to pay the owner of a chain of stores quarterly payments of $77,500, totaling $310,000 for the year. In return, the store owner agrees to exclusively promote Coke products in its newspaper Food Day ads. He agrees that Coke products will be exclusively displayed in all his stores. That means that only Coke products will have those special eye-catching setups away from all other brands. And he agrees that Coke products will have an exclusive feature ad price. That means he will not sell any competing national brand for a price lower than Coke. This deal, which is typical of all these others, is for 26 weeks. Guess who buys the other 26 weeks? You're right, Pepsi. All other brands are effectively locked out. Locked out and shut down is what happened to this independent bottler in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It had been a family-run operation for more than 40 years, bottling and distributing Royal Crown, Knee-High, and some other brands. Chuck McNulty was the sales manager here, and he says business was pretty good until Coke and Pepsi began using CMAs in area stores, shutting his brands out of the store ads, the displays, and the special sale weeks.
When the man from RC, when you went into a big supermarket chain, what would they say to you?
You haven't got enough money. That's about it.
How much money are we talking about with a big chain of stores? How much cash up front?
Oh, in some cases it could be between $150,000 and $200,000 for a hot soft drink week ad, which could be like the week prior to Memorial Day, the week prior to 4th of July, the week prior to Labor Day, Christmas week, Easter. That might be a statewide for 25, 30 stores.
Were the store owners sympathetic to you? I mean, they say, we're terribly sorry, we just can't handle your product.
Well, I think they grew calloused after a while because they just didn't see RC generating much on the charts. You know, the market share just wasn't there.
But the market share gets skewed.
Yes,
however,
it does.
if you go into a store and every sign practically, or practically the whole shelf is Coke or Pepsi.
That's right.
And then there's a little corner there.
2 feet of RC, if there's that much.
What would happen if everyone had the same shot at that marketplace?
Probably get right back to where soft drinks ought to be, and it would be sold on brand loyalty and price and who's got the best product. In other words, and it would probably bring prices down considerably. Soft drinks are really overpriced in this market.
Out in the Phoenix-Tucson area, George Khalil is hanging on. His company bottles and distributes Royal Crown, Sundrop, and Canada Dry products, among others, over a 4-state area. He says his business had been growing at about 300% a year until Coke and Pepsi started offering calendar marketing agreements to the major stores.
It's so bad that it boils down to no matter what price we're selling for, if the grocer wants to carry Coke and Pepsi at competitive prices to his other grocery stores, he has to abide by their rules. And someone walks in and instead of saying, our price is so much a case, he says, if you'll hang a sign up over the butcher table, and if you'll eliminate the competition, and if you'll give us some extra space, and if you'll use only our vending machine, why would they want all those rules and regulations?
But mobsters used to go to jail for doing that.
Well, this is the contract. You know, they used to put out contracts in the old days. These are contracts now. And so what I'm saying is that I want to be in the ball game. If I lose on a fair, square field, it's fine with me. I mean, I don't have any God-given right to stay in business, and I'm not willing to lose this ball game by not having my chance at bat.
How's sales looking?
Down in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, Larry Bryant, president of the Handy Pantry food store chain, was signing Coke and Pepsi CMAs, taking the cash payments, and telling distributors of other soft drinks their products could not be featured in any of his 40 stores.
I'd say I'm on a contract month or basis with Coke or Pepsi, and I can't feature a product. I can't feature or price your soft drink because I'm contracted not to.
In effect, you could not offer a consumer a better deal, a lower price.
That is correct.
Bryant says he began to have second thoughts about signing the deals as their conditions became more rigid and exclusionary.
In 1984, Coke came in and presented a plan for 12 months exclusive rights for the soft drink promotional period, which included the only reduced soft drink price, 75% of the cold space, the primary location in the store for soft drinks for display. I finally realized that they were trying to take control of my soft drink business, and I was losing control of it. And we finally just said, stop. We're not going to do that. We're not going to sign any contracts, and started thinking about the contracts themselves and the exclusivity involved with them, and decided that not only were they not in our best interest, they were probably illegal.
Bryant wasn't the only one who thought the agreements were probably illegal. 4 Charlotte area bottlers of such products as Royal Crown, Sundrop, Knee High, and 7-Up filed suit against the Coke and Pepsi bottlers, charging a variety of antitrust violations, including price fixing and collusion. David McFarland, that economist at the University of North Carolina, testified as an expert witness for the plaintiffs.
Pepsi started using these marketing agreements against Coca-Cola first in the Greensboro area. When it started there, Coca-Cola took a beating. They lost market share right and left. And they discussed within the firm, we ought to sue them. They're breaking the antitrust laws, and we ought to sue them. We could win. And after more discussion, they decided, rather than sue them, let's see if we can join them. They are rivals with one another, and each would like to sell more of his own product. I don't have any question about that. But it's very much in their joint interest not to compete with each other on a price basis. And that's mostly what the conspiracy was about.
Just one day before the case went to trial, the Pepsi bottlers settled out of court, agreeing to pay the plaintiffs an undisclosed amount of money and leaving the Coke bottler to go it alone. After weeks of testimony, the jury took only 12 hours to conclude that a conspiracy between Coke and Pepsi had in fact taken place, that the calendar marketing agreements were really price-fixing arrangements, and that the 4 independent bottlers who had sued had indeed been kept from competing fairly. They were awarded more than $2.5 million in damages from Coke on top of what they'd already been given by Pepsi. That was a civil suit. But in some criminal cases, the Justice Department charges that some Coke and Pepsi bottlers have been conspiring even more blatantly. Last spring, a Pepsi bottler was convicted of price fixing and obstruction of justice. A Coke bottler has been indicted on 4 counts of perjury and obstruction of justice. A Pepsi bottler in the Washington, D.C. area has pleaded guilty to conspiring with a Coke bottler and paid a $1 million fine. The Justice Department says more than a dozen grand juries from Florida to California are or have been investigating conspiracies in the soft drink industry. Just over a week ago, there were new price-fixing charges against a Pepsi bottler and 2 Coke bottlers. Several defendants have already pleaded guilty. Neither parent companies, Coke and Pepsi, have been named in the criminal indictment so far. Both insist they have not engaged in price-fixing, but neither company would agree to a 60 Minutes interview.
Good morning.
Back in North Carolina, Larry Bryant, that store owner who stopped signing those Coke and Pepsi CMAs, says a funny thing happened once he gave all the brands an even shake in his stores. His sales volume went up and the prices stayed down.
And rather than have one soft drink in a period at a reduced price, we had all the soft drinks all the time at somewhat reduced price, which gave all the consumers a break on all the drinks all the time. And what's happened, the consumer's got his continuous break, and we have increased our unit sales. So the thing worked for me, and it worked for the consumer also.
Do you feel better? Do you sleep better at night knowing that you haven't signed CMAs?
I feel great. I don't have to worry about whether I'm involved with something that's not quite right or manipulating a consumer.
But out in Arizona, things haven't gotten much better for George Khalil, despite all the grand jury investigations and the verdict against Coke in the Charlotte case last year.
Within 2 months, the new CMAs that came out were worse than what we had seen in the past. And I can't believe that Coke parent company and Pepsi parent company wouldn't have advised their bottlers to be careful.
And Khalil claims Coke and Pepsi's control of the industry extends beyond the supermarket shelves.
You've probably seen the new Coke and Pepsi vending machines that are lit from top to bottom, side to side. They've been out for about 2 years. I'm not allowed to buy an RC vendor that's lit from top to bottom, from side to side.
Who says so?
The vending machine companies say that only Coke and Pepsi can buy those machines, and that I have to wait. And I said, for how long? And they said there is no plan in the immediate future to allow any brands to have those fully lit machines other than Coke and Pepsi. Somebody has to explain to Coke and to Pepsi what free enterprise in this country should be, and I hope will stay.
Coke and Pepsi were not the first companies to use CMAs, and it now appears they won't be the last. There are signs that CMAs are being used to sell almost everything, as a handful of giant companies move to consolidate their positions and keep competitors from gaining a foothold. David McFarland believes it's the unwelcome wave of the future. So it's not just a question of 2 soft drink manufacturers.
No, it's not.
2 breakfast food manufacturers?
Breakfast food manufacturers, cookies, crackers, soups, ketchup, down the line. The likelihood, I think, is very great that if these marketing arrangements are held to be legitimate, that we'll have a food distribution system in the country where you have to buy your way into the shelves, and what you pay for is keep other people out. That's what's on the horizon, I think.